Welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Base the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, and anyone in between. I appreciate it. Haven't done the video for a few days, but there's been a lot of different things that have taken place, a lot of things have been said, a lot of different news stories. Probably ain't gonna get through all of them today or even tomorrow, but gonna talk about a few bits and pieces. So yeah, I guess without further ado, let's get into it. So the WBC have given Devin Haneys until Friday to decide if he's gonna defend his lightweight title against Shakur Stevenson, who did petition for his mandatory last week, or fight for Regis Prograis super lightweight title at 140. After that point, I'm assuming if he doesn't declare what he's going to do, then they're just going to enforce a mandatory. Once they enforce the mandatory, it'll be up to him to decide whether or not he'll go through with it or whether he'll vacate the belt and do whatever he needs to do. Now, the interesting thing about this is the WBC are only one of the belts that he holds. So you remember, he holds every single belt except the IBO at lightweight. So realistically, they can mandate whatever they want, but the money, quote unquote, is in two fights at the moment. It's either in the Devin Haneys Lomachenko rematch at 135, or it's the Devin Haneys Shakur Stevenson fight. I don't know if Shakur Stevenson and Loma does that good of a business at this point in time, but the WBC obviously making those mandates. Well, if Devin drops those belts, they're not going to get the same sanctioning fees that they would get for either the Undisputed or if he decides to move up. So they might be playing a little bit with fire in terms of, oh, well, you know, hurry up and sort this out kind of thing. Not necessarily guaranteed, but it's a potential. But look, at the end of the day, Haneys has got so many options at the moment. There's the Loma rematch, there's the Shakur fight, neither of which I actually want to see, only because I don't want to, unless Loma's prepared to go up to 140, I don't want to see Devin Haneys fight at 135 again. Against Shakur, it'll definitely be an unfair advantage, so I'm not really keen on that. 140, 147 is where them two need to be fighting each other. So yeah, you've got Prograis, you've got Teofimo Lopez if that fight can be done. You've got the, I guess you could wait for the winner of Rowley and O'Hara Davis, because at the end of the day, you've got, a route to the WBA as well. You could go up from the IBF and fight Subriel Matias if you really wanted to, or just enact your super champ status for the WBO, take a couple warm-up fights and then challenge for that belt as and when you want. So like the WBC basically like mandating and giving him a time frame doesn't really affect anything. He's still got pretty much every single option, and he is the go-to guy at that particular point. But it'll be interesting to see what he does come Friday, so I'll be interested to have a look at it. But yeah, let me know what you think. But otherwise, it's good that they're trying to keep things in circulation. Just a shame that they don't do that when it comes to Tyson Fury or Jamal Charlo. But that's another story for another time. And speaking of the WBC, they've now stated that David Benavidez will not be called as a mandatory for Canelo Alvarez until March of 2024. That is exactly 1 year since he won the interim title. So I'm assuming that must be their policy, that if you win the interim title, you get called as a mandatory within a year of that. I guess depending on how schedules line up. Now, to be totally honest, there's no other time they could have done it apart from maybe the start of October, because Canelo's already got a fight set, it's signed, it's sealed. They've sanctioned the fight, so they can't then call the mandatory for that, unless they was to say your mandatory is in effect after this fight and you've got 5 months to get it done or something like that. Now, so I've seen some people basically say, well, that must mean that he's not going to be fighting Benavidez in May, because if you call the mandatory in March, you can't then realistically expect him to fight that same guy in May, because purse bids wouldn't have been done, or even the deal, like you're giving them basically less than 2 months for the date that we all know that he usually fights on. So that must be the fight for September. Having said that, I mean, they say they're not going to call it until then, but there's nothing to stop that fight from being negotiated straight after, you know, the fight that he has in September against Jermell Charlo. So overall, it's no particular issue, and ultimately I don't think David Benavidez and his dad Jose Benavidez Sr. are actually that worried or that upset about it, because now they know they've got a guaranteed timeline if that's what they really wanted, and it's an extra year on the clock for Canelo and the mileage that people believe that he does have on his body, and you know, coming towards the end of his career. So I'm sure they're not going to be worried, especially if it does end up being September. That's a whole 15-16 months from now. So yeah, they'll probably be on easy street, although I've always said David Benavidez is busting at the seams at 168. So even though it might be another year of wear and tear on Canelo, it could also be another year of you know, basically shrinking your body down to an unnatural size at this point in time, and that could negatively affect him, especially when you're fighting someone with the power, accuracy and placement of someone like Canelo. But either way, at least we have clarity that he will be guaranteed to fight for that title next year. Whether it's against Canelo or not, no idea. But at least he knows now when he'll get the shot at the full belt, and I'm sure that's all he's really been interested in, right? Or is it just having to be able to fight Canelo and get that retirement money? I guess we'll find out. I guess kind of sticking with the WBC in a bit of a less more of a roundabout way, I should say. So we've got a bit more of the context of the Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou fight. So it's not going to be hybrid rules, which we figured out the other day, which is a shame, because I would have quite liked to have seen a boxing ring with the 4-ounce gloves with Queensberry rules, but maybe 5-minute rounds as opposed to the other way, or even maybe boxing and grappling is allowed but not takedowns or kicks. That would have been interesting, and maybe have it in the octagon in 10 threes. You know, but either way, it would have been nice to have that. However, it's an official boxing match. It's going on Tyson Fury's record and Francis Ngannou's record. The WBC belt is not in play because Francis Ngannou is not ranked. And there is a one-way rematch. If Tyson Fury loses, he has the right to a rematch, but if Francis Ngannou loses, at this point he said that he doesn't have that right, but he will figure it out as and when. So again, it's like everything is to the advantage of Tyson Fury. So now, whereas I said before I had no interest in it, I was mildly curious if it was hybrid, but now that I know it's not, I really have no interest. And the fact that you need a rematch clause, but yet the rematch clause supposedly was the deal breaker in the Usyk fight and the AJ fight, and even actually I won't go into the other, but we know, you know, Tyson loves a rematch until it's time to deliver it. Unless your name's Derek Chisora, of course. I mean, let's not forget, Derek was just given the rematch both times. You know, Deontay Wilder was eventually given the second fight and then had to supposedly go into arbitration for the third fight. Even though I've still got other suspicions around that particular event. But yeah, I mean, now it's just like there's no intrigue in this for me at all. So before I was like, nah, I'm not going to watch it because there's no point, and obviously I'm not going to support Fury. I feel bad because I kind of want to support Ngannou and what he's been through. I watch UFC, not religiously, not anymore, but I watch it from time to time, and I've always liked Francis Ngannou as one of the few, especially the heavyweights that I was really, I like the journey of, and I just liked his style. But yeah, I'll just have to hear about it the day after. And if I hear that, you know, he landed that quote unquote lucky punch and knocked Tyson Fury out, joyous, happy days. But outside of that, no interest. When he comes back to fighting a real boxer, one that is of a decent note, I'm not even saying it's got to be Usyk or Joshua at this point. Because funny enough, I mean, Joshua is only a big fighting name according to some people, right? Because 3 losses, he's no longer a force he once was. He's like a spent force. So why is that such a match that you're keen to have if he's no longer quote unquote that good, if you thought he was that good to begin with? So there's just a lot of alternatives. The only one I'm interested in is the Usyk fight, but if he's fighting a boxer, provided if they're in the ring recognized top 10, I'll accept that at this point in time. That's about as good as I can hope for. If they're in the WBC rankings, then top 7 and Otto Wallin. Those are the only ones I'll accept, because I feel like I can still see that fight getting run back and see how that sort of transpires and what happens there. But it's Fury doing what Fury does. I don't know how they really sort of justify it now, apart from just saying, look, it's a simple cash grab. It's something to do up until next year when we can maybe make another bag load of money in Saudi or wherever we're choosing to go. But selling it as this competitive, or we only needs one shot type scenario, not interested. Moving on. And lastly, before I go today, so I've listened to the Anthony Joshua interview, the one in which he was basically saying that Rob McCracken's a very good coach. The only thing is, if you look at Carl Froch's nose, he doesn't teach defense, didn't teach me defense. And then you saw the other quote afterwards. It said, I gave Rob my best years. Now I've got to dig deep to get them back. Like those, if you listen to those, if you look at those two quotes, right? When I first read them, I instantly knew that there's a big segment missing in the middle of this, because the two themselves don't correlate. You can see even the way that they're framed, the cadence of the way they are. Like Joshua doesn't speak like that. Now sometimes you could say, some people just waffle and you kind of just get him from one point to the other. No, but the context in the middle of what man said was actually needed in that. Basically, the whole thing of what he said was, for those of you who haven't heard the full interview, so he basically said that up until after sort of the Olympics, up until like Klitschko and everything, like he was getting by on basically just his own on his gifts. Like he was implementing stuff that Rob was that sort of Rob had taught him from the amateurs and like earlier on in his career, but he just wasn't learning anything new. Like, so he was doing what had always been working because it had always been working. He was having doubts about some stuff, but still what he was doing was working, so he stuck with it. But he just wasn't learning, wasn't progressing. Then the Andy Ruiz fight happened. He realized he had to adjust, so then he started trying to sort of learn about more boxing, pacing himself. That's when he brought in other coaches. That's when Joby Clayton sort of came into the corner. That's when Angel Fernandez. And basically what he said was, Rob was, if you look at it in terms of he didn't put this, but I'm going to use it as an example for anyone who can maybe understand. Like, Rob is more of like an Alex Ferguson. He's a manager. He manages the individual components of the people that are actually doing the sessions. So he'll kind of say, tell him to keep his hand up over there, blah blah blah, over there. So he's not necessarily taking the session all the way, but he's overseeing, spotting the weaknesses and getting things done. And basically what he said was, the reason that he gravitates towards Derek James is because Derek James is just like Rob in the way that his thought processes and the way he does things. He sees him just the way that Rob McCracken is. The only difference is that Derek James teaches a specific, like he teaches an actual system. So whereas Rob might just sort of get you doing certain things here and there, like Derek James is actually teaching you something new. He's teaching you a certain philosophy. He's teaching you a certain style that he is implementing. And he said that's what, basically that's the thing that he's now sort of got excited about, because he gave Rob his best years. Like, essentially he gave Rob his best years as a pro, like as an actual a physical human being. He gave him his best years. Like, those were, in his mind, he feels like he was at his peak in a lot of ways. Now he's like, I've got to dig deep to see, like, can I get back to that? I'm not sure if I can. Yeah, I know it's in me in terms of like my mental, but in terms of other things, I don't know. I've got to dig real deep to find out if it's there, and that's what I'm going to try and do with Derek. So there was never any part of that interview where he was like slagging off Rob McCracken. You can tell, you listen to the interview, you can tell how much he actually really does value Rob. Even with the part where he said, the only thing he said was that because like when he was doing the Andy Ruiz rematch, like Rob was off with the GB squad, like training for the Olympics. Like, so he didn't even really come into camp until sort of 7 weeks before the fight. So he just kind of wasn't around, and he kind of at that point realized that if he's gonna be learning this new stuff, he's gonna need to get his own another team in place. Hence why Angel Fernandez and Joby Clayton sort of became more prevalent in the team before the Pulev and the Usyk fight, because he just needed people that were going to be like hands-on throughout that process, with Rob just basically coming in to oversee things and tweak and tighten things up. That was the whole purpose of the interview. But because people, have basically taken two unrelated segments and mashed them together, have just made it look like he's basically blaming Rob for all of his shortfalls. It's not the case. And I'm not AJ's biggest fan, really not. But I don't like when people are misquoted and misrepresented, especially, and it's happened to me several times throughout life. So I know that it's not nice, and when people twist your words or just wanna make news and make headlines from you. I won't go into details of like one of the times it happened to me, but yeah, to me it's one of the most frustrating things when someone uses words I either didn't say or uses them in the context they know is incorrect to either discredit me or to basically try and make me look bad, until someone then sees the entire thing and like, oh, okay, cool. So I can kind of get how he probably must feel about that. But also, I mean, I feel like sometimes AJ doesn't help himself in these situations. There's certain ways he maybe could have went around that and maybe not said certain things, because again, you never know what people are going to do, take and clip up for their own purposes. So sometimes don't give them the fuel. But yeah, if you get a chance, have a listen to the full interview. It's about 10 to 12 minutes long, and it's insightful. There's some good nuggets in there, and it's more an introspection on him and how badly does he really want to carry on going, and how bad is he gonna have to dig deep, and what he if he's really up for the challenge. That's more what it's about. It's not about slagging off Rob McCracken. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Probably I've got more videos to do sort of tomorrow, but I wanted to kind of just clear that up because I felt it was necessary. As always, please like and subscribe, share with everyone that I stated at the front. Remember, have a look at the memberships. Members only content will come with more members. It'll be 2 a month for now, and then maybe increase later on down the line with more and more people jump on board. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. For right now, it's Hardcore Casual out.